Hello, this is Mrs. Huntley, and this is your PSAT test practice, or practice test, I guess I should say. The directions say that it's online, but it's not. Obviously, we printed a hard copy for you, and we did edit it just to include the math portions, not the entire comprehensive test. So this was a free online resource. Um, and we looked at a bunch of different resources and we thought this was actually a pretty decent one. However, in it they recommend that you buy things, and we are not recommending that at this point in your career. I would suggest sticking with all of the free resources if you're going to try to prep for the PSAT. And actually I wouldn't even suggest prepping beyond what we're doing together, because this is the first time you're seeing the test. It's really a test that's geared more toward high school students, but we're bringing it down a little bit because the rigor of our curriculum is getting higher, and we just want to see how well we are preparing you and what areas we might need to focus on to make sure that by the time you're a junior and you're actually taking the test to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship, that you're in really good shape. Um, so that's part of the reason for the test. Another reason for the test is for us to have kind of a national norm for how we're doing and how we're preparing you to go to high school and beyond. So this is a page that is just talking about the idea of prepping. I'm going to start reading down here. The PSAT is a standardized test written and administered by the College Board. It's co-sponsored by the National Merit Scholarship, and it's designed to assess students' skills in critical reading, mathematics, and writing. Beginning in the fall of 2015, there were 3 PSAT tests: the PSAT 8-9, which is what you're going to be taking next week, the PSAT 10, and the PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Contest. These tests will be taken by students in 8th or 9th grade, 10th grade, and 10th or 11th grade, respectively. The test in this PDF is particularly geared toward the preparation for the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Contest, and when we say PSAT, that's the test that we mean. However, the advice that is in this packet and this test prep applies to really any test, all tests. So detailed instructions are given. I'm sorry, I missed a paragraph here. The PSAT is a time test. You'll be allowed a limited amount of time for each section, and the entire test will take about 2 hours and 45 minutes. The total amount of time that you'll have for each section is given on the first page of each section, and it will be proctored, so we'll be announcing that and we'll have it posted around the room. All right, quick tips, and these are test-taking tips that apply all the time. Read every question and answer option carefully. Many students select incorrect answers simply because they misread the question or they didn't look at all the answer options. Read carefully to avoid careless mistakes. That being said, keep in mind it is a timed test. So if you find that you're spending an inordinate amount of time on one question, you may have to rush toward the end. So be careful and just pace yourself really well. Use the process of elimination. Sometimes the easiest way to find the correct answer is to cross out the answers in your test booklet that you know are incorrect. Don't cross out answers in your answer sheet as stray marks, as they might be counted as incorrect answers. Make your best guess on every problem. You should always try to find the correct answer, but if you find that you're stumped, then you should try to make your best guess. There is no penalty for guessing. Don't be afraid to write in your test booklet. Although you won't receive extra credit for showing your work, writing in your booklet might help you work through questions and have a reference for later. You'll only receive points for what you have marked in your answer sheet, so remember to mark something for every question. Alrighty, let's move on. The PSAT directions: work on just one section at a time. If you complete a section before the end of your allotted time, use the extra minutes to check your work in that section only. Don't go back to other sections. Using your test booklet, no credit is given for anything written in the booklet, but you can use it for scratch paper. You're not allowed to continue answering questions in a section after the allotted time has run out. This includes marking answers on your answer sheet that you previously noted in your test booklet, and you're not allowed to fold pages, take pages out of the booklet, or take any pages home. Excuse me. Answering questions. Each answer must be marked in the corresponding answer sheet. Each bubble must be filled in completely and darkly within the lines. So this would be the correct way to do it. and obviously those would be incorrect. Be careful to bubble in the correct part of the answer sheet. Extra marks on your answer sheet may be marked as incorrect answer and lower your score, and we will make sure that you have a number 2 pencil. Scoring we're not going to concern ourselves with at this point, but you do receive a point for every correct answer. Incorrect answers don't result in points deducted, so you are best off making guesses. If you're unsure about an answer, don't leave it blank. Fill something in. And actually, and especially when you have an answer sheet like the one that we have, when you leave blanks, it's easy to get messed up and start answering things on the wrong page. So you want to be careful of that too. So this is what the answer document would look like, and obviously there's 4 sections. And again, when you don't know the answer to one, instead of just skipping it, you might want to fill in some answer and make a mark in your test booklet that you were unsure of it and come back, because once you leave one blank, it's super easy to kind of get confused with which answer that you're answering. So let's move on to the actual practice test. The first part is going to be a no calculator part, and it says right here how long you have and how many questions there are. The directions will be read by the proctor. So it says questions 1 through 3 ask you to solve a problem, select the best answer in your book amongst 4 choices, and fill in the corresponding circle on your answer sheet. Questions 14 to 17 ask you to solve a problem and answer your answer in a grid provided on your answer sheet. There are detailed instructions on entering answers into the grid before question 14. We will also go through that today. You may use your test booklet for scratch paper. The notes for this section. You may not use a calculator. Variables and expressions represent real numbers unless they state otherwise. Figures are drawn to scale unless stated otherwise. Figures lie in a plane unless stated otherwise. And the domain of a function is defined as a set of all real numbers for x, for which f of x is also a real number unless otherwise stated. Now what this notation means is a function notation, and we haven't learned that yet, but basically what it means is whatever's happening to x is a result of whatever operation is being done on x. So your answer is your function of x, and whatever's being done, it's like an equation. It's just a different kind of notation. You will have a reference sheet, and on the reference sheet it gives us area for a triangle, the Pythagorean theorem, special triangles, area for volume, area of a rectangle, volume of a prism, volume of a cylinder, area of a circle, circumference of a circle, and volume of a sphere. It also gives us hints, like there are 360 degrees in a circle, the sum of the angles in a triangle is 180 degrees, and the number of radians in an arc in a circle is 2 pi. Again, don't be too concerned with things that you haven't learned yet. Just see if you can try to reason through and figure them out to the very best of your ability. So let's get on to some problems. Number 1 says, and I'm just going to get a marker going here, and I want a thin line, and I want it blue. Okay. The velocity of a ball that is thrown upwards is represented by the equation v equals -5t squared minus 20t plus 60, where v represents the velocity and t represents the time in seconds. After how many seconds does the velocity of the ball become 0? So don't panic. T represents the time, and we want to know when the v is equal to 0. Okay, when does v equal 0? We know how to do this. We know how to solve a problem. I know we haven't solved equations that have exponents in it, but we've dealt with exponents. We know how to do exponents. So when is v equal to 0? So when is -5 times t squared minus 20t plus 60 0? We may not know about velocity, but we have the possible answers right here. So we can just start plugging them in and see which one works. So when does 5 times 2 squared minus 20 times 2 plus 60, does that equal 0? Let's figure it out. -5, 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4, so -5 times 4, minus 20 times 2 is going to be 40, plus 60. -5 times 4 is -20, minus 40, plus 60. Negative 40, I'm sorry, negative 20 minus 40 is negative 60 plus 60. V equals 0 right there. Okay. So we figured it out on the first one that we did. Now that we were lucky there, the answer was A. It could have been that the answer A was not going to give me 0, and I would have had to check the other ones. So now I know number 1 is A. I'm going to come back to my answer sheet, and we are in section 3. Whoops. Okay, section 3. And if I'm marking answer A, I would want to answer the entire thing. Okay, I am not going to come back to the answer sheet after every problem. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I'd have to go back and go on my answer sheet there. So let's take a look at the next one and see if we can attack this one. At any point, you can pause the video and you can be working through the problems on your own and just come back and check to see if you have the right answers. So if we have, if x minus 1 times x plus 4 equals 0, what are the values for x? It could be 4, 1, negative 1, or negative 4. Let's look at my answers. 1 and 3. Oh, so could it be, oh, it's going to be more than one of these at a time. Okay, so in other words, 2 answers is going to make this correct. Again, we haven't learned this yet, but we have learned how to substitute things in and solve. So I'm going to go ahead. I want this thinner, and I don't know why it wasn't thinner before. I'm going to go ahead and just start plugging in numbers and seeing when the left side of the equation is going to equal 0 and how that's going to work. So 4 minus 1 times 4 plus 4, does that equal 0? 4 minus 1 is 3 times 4 plus 4 is 8. That is not going to equal 0. I don't even have to do that math. I know it's not. I know 3 times 8 is not going to equal 0. Number 2. 1, so that's not it. I'm going to cross that one off. Number 2 is 1 minus 1 times 1 plus 4. Does that equal 0? 1 minus 1 is 0 times 1 plus 4 is 5 equals 0. 0 times 5 does equal 0. So I know this is one of my answers. That's a good one. So now I'm going to try 3. Negative 1 minus 1 times negative 1 plus 4. Does that equal 0? Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. Negative 2 times 3, that does not equal 0, so I know this is not one of them. So without even checking my last one, I could make an educated guess here to say it's got to be 2 and 4. Because I know it's not 1 and 3. So I can save myself some time of actually checking that last one and make an educated guess that it is in fact going to be B. Okay, number 3 says, which of the following is a correct value for x in the equation above? Again, we can substitute in all of these answers and see which one works. Starting with A, 2 times 3 to the second power minus 3 does that equal 15? We know 3 to the second power, 3 times 3 is 9, so 2 times 9 minus 3. 2 times 9 is 18 minus 3. Oh, we got lucky again. 18 minus 3 is 15, and that's going to be the first one that we check. Next one says, an engineer determined that a bridge he is designing has I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. Try again. An engineer determined that a bridge he is designing has a maximum stability when its length L, width W, and height H are defined by the equations above. If he wants to build a bridge with a height of 9 meters, what should the length of the bridge be in meters? So if our height is 9, sorry, I had to look at my hard copy because on the video it looks like that's H minus 3, and I did not think that was correct, and I was very confused for a moment. So my height is 9 meters. This is H equals 3W. So I can figure out my width by plugging, or yeah, my width by substituting in the 9 for the H there. So 9 equals 3 times the width. To get my width all by itself, I'm going to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So my width is going to equal 3. I'm going to take that answer, plug it in up here. So my width, which is 3, is equal to my length divided by 8. How do I undo a division? I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. So my length is going to be 3 times 8, or 24. And that is the answer to B. So it might be that you have to solve one equation, take that answer, substitute it in the other equation, and then solve that equation. These are both just one-step equations. So if you looked at this problem and were like, I have no idea, I know that you learned how to do one-step equations last year. So please don't be so concerned about this test and think like you're going to be not at all prepared for it. I think you're going to be very well prepared for it. Okay. Here's where we have that function of x, or f of x notation. What this means, this is like going back to elementary school where you had those function machines. This is our input, and this is our output. Okay? Remember when you'd have an operation machine and a number would come in and it would come out the other end and you'd have to figure out what was going on to it, or with it, I should say. So let's take a look. What's happening to -3 to get to 8? Okay. Well, actually, instead of doing it that way, what we could do is actually come down and try looking at these equations and seeing if one of these equations would work. So my x is -3. So -3 minus -3 squared. So -3 minus 9, oops, -3 minus 9 is -12. So this one does not work. I know it's not that one. Let's try B. -3 minus 1 is -4. This one does not work. Let's see this one. -3 squared minus 1. -3 squared is going to be +9, minus 1 is 8. This one worked. Again, I can save myself time and not even check D. So instead of spinning your wheels up here and trying to figure out what's happening to the 3 to get to an 8, and is it the same thing that's happening here, you can just, because all of the answers are there, you can start checking each answer one by one. Okay, the next one, and you're looking at this going, where would I even start something like this? Well, I want you to start knowing you've got some tools to find the answer. We have our x and our y values right here. Okay, we can pick one or the other. We don't have to check both. We're going to check one or the other and see if they work in any of these equations down here. So does 0 equal 4 minus 1? 4 minus 1 is 3. Nope, that one doesn't work. Does 0 equal 4 squared minus 2 times 4 minus 9? Let's see, 4 squared is 16. Minus 16, I'm sorry, minus 8, minus 9. This would give us, does 0 equal that? Does 0 equal, let's see, 16 minus 8 minus 9 is going to be -1. So no, this one doesn't work. Let's see, C. Does 4 minus 1 squared minus 9, does that equal 0? Okay, 4 minus 1 squared is 3 squared minus 9. 3 squared minus 9, or 3 squared is 9. Minus 9 is indeed 0. So this is the one that's going to work. Okay, even though you haven't learned about parabolas and the equations that go with parabolas, you have enough information to be able to solve these problems. Okay, Next, we're going to look at some directions about filling in the grids. So we're required to bubble in the circles for answers. But it's recommended, it is recommended but not required that you also write your answers in the box above the columns. Points will be awarded based only on whether the circles are filled in completely. So again, I think it's a good idea to fill in the boxes that are up here just so that you're sure you're bubbling in the right answer, but that's up to you. Fill in only one circle in a column. Start with the answer in any column as long as you can fit the whole answer in there. So for questions 14 to 17, no answers will be negative numbers. Mixed numbers, such as 4 and 2/5, must be gridded as decimals or improper fractions, such as 4.4 or 22/5 or 42/5 will be read as 42/5, not as 4 and 2/5. Okay? So if your answer is a decimal with more than if your answer is a decimal with more digits than will fit on the grid, you may round it or cut it off, but you must fill in the entire grid. If there are multiple correct answers to a problem, all of them will be considered correct. Enter only one of them on the grid. When you see this, stop. If you complete the section before the end of the allotted time, check your work. Do not use the time to go on to another section. So let's take a look and see what's next. Next, we have the calculator portion of the test. Again, you're going to have access to the sheet. The directions will be read to you. And now you can be using a calculator. Keep in mind, these are actually very similar to the other questions. They're just going to be a little bit more complex. Now, okay, this first one, you haven't actually learned how to do it. They're asking us to figure out which expression is equivalent. And when you have two polynomials, the way there's an acronym called FOIL. Oops, that's not an L. Which means first, outer, inside, and last. So it means we're going to be doing our first, multiply them together. So 3x times x is going to be 3x squared. Outer, 1 times 3x is going to be 3x. Inner, negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And then last, negative 2 times 1 is going to be negative 2. So now we can simplify. So there'll be 3x squared plus 3x minus 2x is going to be just 1x or x. And then minus 2. That'll be this last one. Okay, an athlete throws a javelin, a long spear, at track and field competition. The javelin's height, h, and that's the height, is a function of the number of seconds it was thrown. So t is your number of seconds. I should have changed colors for that, just so you can see the difference. T is the seconds. Okay. Modeled by the equation t equals, or I'm sorry, height, or equals, height is a function of t, which is why they're showing it that way. Negative 16 t squared plus 128 t. What is the height of the javelin after 5 seconds? So they're telling us what t equals. So h of t equals negative 16, plug in the 5 here, okay? You can use your calculator. So negative 16 times 5 squared is 25, so negative 16 times 25 is going to be negative 40, or 400, sorry. 128 times 5 is going to be 640. So negative 400 plus 640 is going to be 240 feet. We know that the interior angles of a triangle equal 180. So we've got 2x plus 3x plus 7x equals 180. That's going to be 12x equals 180. I need my x by itself, so I'm going to divide by 12, and x is going to equal 15. Now it's asking us what is the value of the largest angle in the triangle at above. It doesn't say what is x equal, so the largest triangle is this obtuse triangle, and I need to take 7 times 15 to figure that out. 7 times 15 is 105, and that would be D. We are not going to do number 4 right now. If you come across a problem like number 4, make an educated guess. Number 5 is the, okay, it's scaling and it's area. So remember, area is going to be your length times your width. And if we've got, on a house blueprint, 2 feet is represented by 1 inch. If a room on the blueprint measures 5 inches by 6 inches, so this will be 5, and this will be 6. What is the area of the actual room? So if 1 foot, or I'm sorry, yeah, 1 inch is 2 feet, I'm going to multiply by 2. So 5 times 2, this is going to be 10 feet. This is going to be 12 feet. So 10 times 12 is going to be 120. Okay. Moving right along. Club participation at a school. The graph above shows the student participation for 4 school clubs. Each student is allowed to participate in only 1 club. If the school has 250 students, how many students are not in a club? So this one is 20. See, I go across there. This one looks like it's halfway between 60 and 80, so we'll call it 70. And orchestra looks like it's halfway between 80 and 90, or 80 and 100, so we'll call it 90. And this one is at 40. So we're going to add those all together. 20 plus 70 plus 90 plus 40 is 220. In a club. And I've got 250 total students minus 220 in a club, and that leaves me with 30 students who are not participating in a club. Okay, questions 9 and 10 refer to the following. Okay, negative and even numbered distributions. Okay, so negatives are my darks, and the even numbers are the light ones. The graph above shows the distribution of negative and even numbers in 3 sets of numbers. How many sets had more even than negative numbers? So more even than negative. So this one, the even number is higher. This one, the even number is higher. So that would be a 2. If set B has 200,000 elements, how many more negative numbers than even numbers would you expect to find in the set? Set B. Okay, so we've got 75%. The percent of distribution, this looks like about 75%, times 200,000. So this is your negative numbers, and that's going to be 150,000. And the even numbers looks like 50%. So 50 times 200,000. I guess I could show my work. I knew that one to be 100,000. So how much greater is this than this? 50,000. Okay. We're not going to do 12 and 13. During the first month of life, a newborn's weight increases by 30%. if a newborn weighs W pounds when it is 1 month old, which of the following expressions represent the baby's weight at birth? So our birth weight, what we start with, we don't know what it is. So we'll call it, let's just call it birth weight. And it's going to be multiplied by 1.3 to equal the weight that it is now. So how would I get the birth weight all by itself? I'm going to divide both sides by 1.3. So the birth weight equals the weight it is right now divided by 1.3. Let's see if that's one of our options. The weight that it is right now divided by 1.3. That's just problem solving, guys. That's just problem solving. Okay? Okay, for questions 14 and 15, refer to the pie chart. Pie chart shows the distribution of immigrants in a city based on the continent of origin. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, hold on a second. Okay, the bell has rung, so I cannot go through the rest of the problems with you, but I am going to give you the correct answers. For this one, it is B, and for this one, it is B. Let's see what the next page has, and oh, so close to finishing it. So that is the end of our PSAT prep. Of course, if you have any questions, bring them to school, and I will see you tomorrow.